This video is a discussion about John Searle on the philosophy of mind, and to a great extent, this is a discussion of uh, Descartes' mind-body problem as it relates to perception. Um, the first discussion that John Searle had, this is really from his UC Berkeley class that he holds, just the first video that you can view online, and I'm just summarizing it here. Um, Basically, this is a realistic view of how the world is and ties into how Newton viewed the world as well. Um, Basically, that life began at some point at the Big Bang. Um, Evolution of over about 3 billion years of that created human beings as they are today. Um, and and we view the world in a discrete manner. Uh, Particles on the wave collapse and so forth. All that was discovered later, but basically, um, Descartes believed in a discrete universe. So the mind-body problem that he came up with, he said that there was part of the world was mental and part of it is physical. It was termed the Cartesian dualism. It's also called the mind-body problem. He came up with substances, and this was similar to what Aristotle came up with uh, 2,000 or 1,600 years earlier. This was Descartes came up with this in around the 1600s sometime. And basically, there were two essences that made up these substances. One was the mind, which was consciousness, which was also the soul. And some people come up with mind, body, and soul. He believed that the mind and the soul and consciousness and thinking were all the one. And then there was the body, which was matter and has anything that has extension. Um, Outside of this as well, he also came up with the cosmological argument that God does exist. On a prior video, I said I wasn't quite sure because he ultimately came up with the term "I think, therefore I am," that he doubted everything. But really, through his argument, he tried to prove the existence of God and proved in this theory also that it was consistent with that. And I believe that current philosophers uh, shun and ridicule Descartes and this mind-body dualism today, possibly because it is tied to religion. Um, so some of the features of the mind and the body, first of all, the body, which is matter, is infinitely divisible and that which has extension. It is deterministic, so that's billiard balls, Newton, deterministic type world. Um, and we have indirect knowledge of it because you view matter outside of the mind. So that's one half of the universe. And then you also have the mind, which he believes is that which had no extension. So this kind of goes back to what Zeno said in his um, Elements, mathematical, the point had no extension. Descartes claims that the mind is indestructible, not divisible at all, free as opposed to deterministic, and we have direct knowledge of it. So this is really fascinating to me that he came up with this, that this mind which was consciousness, thinking, the soul, was not divisible at all, contrary to what matter was. And we've talked in other videos how does a line become a line if a point is that which has no extension. Um, and this kind of reminds me of that. This mind which has no extension is out there in like almost this spirit type form. Where is it exactly? I think today a lot of philosophers and scientists would say that the brain waves are matter as well, and that everything's in the material world. But I want to check more into this mind-body problem and thesis, because I really like this idea of possibly a mind being eternal, indestructible, and free. Um, and the foundation of the ego, again, going back to Alan Watts and Eastern religions that say you need to lose the self um, to reach nirvana. And that's kind of interesting too, because a lot of the current scientists, physicists, and philosophers believe that everything is matter. So then that's kind of consistent with the Eastern way of thinking, that you're losing the self, whereas this is distinct. And because it's distinct, um, you have the ego here. So this is kind of an interesting discussion. So you have the mind and the body. There's a term, mind-body relation problem. If you have the body and matter, which is billiard balls, interacting with each other, deterministic, how does the mind, which has no extension, have any impact on that at all? So the body can feel pain, and that sends a signal to the mind. So you can see the flow going that way. But how does the mind go to affect the body? As an example, raising one's hand, how does a nothing impact the something here? So that's really at the core of this mind-body problem, is how does something interact with nothing again. And this is kind of going back to the Zeno's paradox and Euclid and all of that. Um, so in his whole analysis, he came up with I think, therefore I am. That is something that he knew with certainty, that he existed. And so then he went through a lot of different problems of other minds. How do I know other minds exist? I know that mine exists, and this whole debate whether other minds really exist. Are they computers? Are they deceivers? Is the entire universe part of this great deception and evil genius? So he went through all of that. How do you know for certain that you're not the only one in the universe? And that's really a scary proposition if you think of that. Um, the loneliness of the possibility that you could be the only mind in the entire universe is just kind of crazy. Um, Argument from analogy. You you can bang your own thumb and you know that you have pain, so you know that you exist. You bang someone else's thumb and you have no sensation. Uh, Banging someone else's thumb is like banging on this table, doesn't have any direct relationship to you. So you can't get down to this proof that other minds exist through that. Solipsism, um, John Searle believes that there's nobody that seriously believes in solipsism, and that is the belief that I am the only mind that exists. Uh, Someone came up with the idea that Fichte is a philosopher that may believe that. Um, but that's just kind of interesting again, is that you know for certain that you exist because you're thinking and talking and living your existence. But how do you know that we're not in this great matrix computer program? How do you know that others exist? So um, you have this skepticism about the perception of the outside universe. So he went through a lot of different arguments trying to get at reality and perception. And again, this ties back to Eastern way of thinking. Again, the study of reality and physics and quantum mechanics, and this all ties together. There's a naive realism, and what that is that um, the mind perceives the body. The mind perceives matter directly. It's literally seeing. I see this table, I see this computer, and it is what it is. I see it directly. That's a naive realism. So it's termed literal seeing, intentionality. Just it is a direct viewing. And for some reason, a lot of philosophers and physicists get away from this, and they don't believe in it. Although Bertrand Russell apparently presupposes that we're all living in a state of this naive realism where we are perceiving something directly. And I think Ayn Rand would say that, of course, this is the computer, this is the table, A is A, and she would keep it um, that simple. But then you have this question of there are illusions out there, illusions, hallucinations, and so forth. Possibly that there's some rare instances where we're not definitely perceiving something directly. So apparently, a lot of these philosophers and scientists today, especially Kant, believe that we go from the mind to a sense datum, and we're viewing the body and matter. And there's this in between, and it's a representative realism. And Kant would say that we're not really seeing the true nature, the thing in itself, but we're only seeing what is projected to like this sense datum, and that we could never know the true nature of a thing. So that really was at the crux of what Ayn Rand did not like about Kant. She believed that just, yeah, absolutely, you just view an object, and that's what it is, and that's what the concept is. And you don't have to go through all these gyrations. So that's a quick um, introduction to John Searle and really to Descartes. And um, the main point that I wanted to get out of this is this mind-body problem, that matter being that which is extension, and the mind that which is not extension. And that's the biggest thing that kind of ties back to this Euclid and Zeno's paradox. How can something that doesn't have extension interact with matter that does?